everyone, welcome back to another math lesson. Today we're going to continue on with lesson 3 of our quadratic equations, solving quadratic equations using square roots. So let's get started. The square root principle. When b is equal to 0, the quadratic equation ax squared plus bx plus c, where it's equal to 0, where a cannot be 0, becomes ax squared plus c is equal to 0. If this equation has a solution, it can be solved using square roots. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's solve it with some examples. A. X squared minus 7 is equal to 8. So what we're going to do is we're going to move all the numbers to the right-hand side, okay? And then we will isolate x, okay? So let's just isolate x right now. So let's add 7 to both sides here. So we have 3x squared is equal to 15. Divide both sides by 3. Which means you get x is equal to 5. Okay? So what we're going to do now is we will... x squared is equal to 5. So what we'll do is we'll take the square root of both sides to make it so that we get x is equal to plus or minus the root of 5. Okay? So what we are going to do is we are going to check. There's two possible answers. One positive, one negative. Okay? So let's check. So we are going to check. Let's check, and let's let x equals the square root of 5. Okay, so that'll be 3 times the root of 5 squared, okay, is equal to, minus 7 is equal to 8. Okay, so that means that the root of 5 squared is going to be 3 times 5 minus 7 is equal to 8. Well, 3 times 5 is 15. Minus 7 is equal to 8. 8 is equal to 8. That's good. That's what we want. And for the other check, let's let x equal the negative root of 5. Right? There are two possible ones. Positive and negative. We just did the positive one. Now we try the negative one. So this is going to be 3 multiplied by the negative root of 5 squared minus 7 is equal to 8. Well, this squared is going to be 3 times 15. 3 times 5 is minus 7 is equal to 8. So we have 15 minus 7 is equal to 8. And very similarly to last time, we have 8 is equal to 8. So that one also works as well. So it's best to check with what you're working on. Okay. So there. Moving on to B, we have x plus 3 squared is equal to 20. So again, by the root rule, hard to say, we will take the square root of both sides. So that means we have x plus 3 is equal to positive or negative root of 20. Okay. From here, we can subtract 3 so that we have x is equal to negative 3 plus or minus the root of 20. That means that there are two possible outcomes. Either x is equal to negative 3 plus the root of 20, or x is equal to negative 3 minus the root of 20. Okay, so that's the possible outcomes that we have. Let's check. So let x equal negative 3 plus the root of 20. So that means that x, when we substitute in, we get negative 3 plus the root of 20 plus 3 squared is equal to 20. Well, we have negative 3 plus 3, so that gives us 0. So all we have left now is the root of 20 squared is equal to 20. The root of 20 squared is 20 equals to 20. That's good. So far, so good. That's what we want. Next one, we're going to have let x equal negative 3 minus the root of 20. Okay, so negative 3 minus 20, so this is going to be negative 3 minus the root of 20 plus 3. All squared is equal to 20. Okay, this one, we will have will be, well, negative 3 plus 3. That still gives us 0. So now we have negative the root of 20 squared is equal to 20. This squared is 20. It equals 20. So this one also works. Again, it's best to check to make sure that both answers are correct, or both values are correct with the original equation. Moving on to completing the square. So any quadratic equation in the form ax squared plus bx plus c can be solved taking the square root by changing it into the form of x plus p squared is equal to q. This is called completing the square. Okay, so we have perfect square trinomials. X squared plus 6x plus 9. Okay, well, if this is x plus p is equal to q, well, these are perfect square trinomials, right? So this, what factors of 9 add up to give you 6? Well, it's 3. So this should actually be x plus 3 squared, right? With this one, x squared minus 4x plus 4. The factors of this, the factors that add up to negative 4 but multiply to give you 4. Okay, well, this is going to be x minus 2 squared, right? So again, if you can't quite see it, this becomes x plus 3, x plus 3. And this one becomes x minus 2, x minus 2. Okay, those are your perfect square trinomials. Moving on to example 2, solving by completing the square when a is equal to 1. So it says solve by completing the square, x squared plus 6x minus 16 is equal to 0. Okay, so if we're going to have x squared plus 6x is equal to 16. So all I've done is move the negative 16 from the left and moved it over to the right. Okay, because we wanted x plus p squared is equal to q. That's what we want. That's completing the square. Okay, so in order to complete the square, we need to make it a perfect square. So what we are going to do is we are going to divide the middle term by 2 and then square it, right? So it's going to be b over 2 squared. That's what we're going to do. This is going to be x squared plus 6x plus blank is equal to 16 minus blank. Okay, so that's what we are going to do. Okay, so the x squared plus 6x plus something. Well, that something is going to be your b, and b is going to be 6. So 6 divided by 2 gives us 3. 3 squared is 9. If we recall, real quickly, if we go back up to the past example, it gives us a perfect square trinomial. X squared plus 6x plus 9. So essentially that's what we're doing. We're creating a perfect square trinomial by completing the square. Whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other side. So since we added 9 to one side, we need to add 9 to the other side. Okay? So now we have x squared plus 6x plus 9. That's a perfect square trinomial. So now it becomes x plus 3 squared, right? Because we figured that out with a perfect square trinomial. And 16 plus 9 gives us 25. Okay? So we can actually square root both sides now to figure out what x equals. So we can square root both sides like so. And go x plus 3 is equal to positive or negative 5. Two possible answers. Okay? So that means that x is equal to negative 3 plus or minus 5. Which means that x equals either, well, negative 3 plus 5 is 2, or negative 8. Right? Those are your two possible answers. Let's try B. So B says x squared plus 8x minus 10 is equal to 0. So first off, we're going to move the 10 to the other side so that we have x squared plus 8x equals 10. Okay, so same thing. We're going to go b divided by 2 squared. So it's going to be x squared plus 8x plus blank is equal to 10 plus blank. So whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other side. So since we're adding something to the left side, we have to add it to the right side. Okay, so we have x squared plus 8x plus, well, b is there 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 squared is 16. So we're going to add 16 to both sides. Okay. X squared plus 8x plus 16. That's going to be x plus 4 squared. It's whatever your b value was when you divided it by 2. The b over 2, that becomes the value that goes into this bracket. Okay. And then we have 26. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we are going to take the square root of both. Take the square root of the front, the left side and the right side. So we have x plus 4 is equal to positive or negative root of 26, which means that x is equal to negative 4 plus or minus the root of 26. Answer there. Moving on to C, we have x squared plus 4x is equal to 3. Now, we don't need to move anything onto the other side because it's already been done for us. So we can go right to the next step, which is x squared plus 4x plus blank is equal to 3 plus blank. Okay? Again, it's b over 2 squared. So it's 4 divided by 2, which is 2. 2 squared is 4. So we're going to add 4 to both sides here. So we have x plus 2, right? Because this is the perfect square. So it's going to become 2, right? B divided by 2 is equal to 7. Okay, which means that if we take the square root of both sides, like so, it'll be x plus 2 is equal to positive or negative the square root of 7. And then we move the 2 over. So it's going to be x is equal to negative 2 plus or minus the root of 7. And that's our answer. Example 3, solve by completing the square when a is not 1. So everything before was when a is equal to 1. Now we're going to look at trinomials where x is not 1. Okay, so we have negative 1 over 2x squared plus 6x minus 1 is equal to 0. So problem for us, 2 things. 1, we have a fraction for a, and 2, it's negative. Okay, so what we are going to do is we're going to multiply both sides of the equation by negative 2. Okay, so let's multiply everything by negative 2. So this by negative 2, this by negative 2, this by negative 2, and of course this by negative 2. Everything. Every term on the left and the 0 on the right. So now it becomes x squared minus 12x plus 2 is equal to 0. Okay, so we're going to complete the square. So we're going to move the 2 over. Okay, so let's move the 2 minus 2 to both sides. So we have x squared minus 12x plus blank is equal to negative 2 plus blank. That blank again, I'll write it again, b over 2 squared. Okay, negative 12 divided by 2 is negative 6. Negative 6 squared is 36. Okay, so it's 36. Okay, so that means that this is going to be x minus 6 squared equals, well, negative 2 plus 36 is 34. Take the square root of both sides, like so. And we have x minus 6 is equal to positive or negative the root of 34, which means that x is equal to negative 6 plus or minus the root of 34. And that is your final answer. Moving on to B. So again, we have negative 5x squared minus 10x plus 2 is equal to 0. So right now, we have another problem. Then we have a negative 5 in front of the x. So we're going to do very similarly to last time, right? Is we need to get rid of the coefficient in front of the x squared. Okay? So by doing that, let's divide everything, and I mean everything, by negative 5. Every term divided by negative 5. So negative 5 divided by negative 5 is, we have x squared plus 2x minus 2 over 5 is equal to 0. Having a fraction at the end is okay. It's the a value that's a bit of a pain for us. So we want to get rid of that coefficient in front of the a value. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to add 2 over 5 to both sides so that we move it over to the other side. So now we have x squared plus 2x, and then we're going to add something because we're going to complete the square, and then we have 2 over 5 plus that something. Okay. Again, it's b over 2 squared. So it's going to be 2 divided by 2, which is 1. 1 squared is 1. So you're going to add 1 to both sides. Okay, so we're going to now have x plus, well, b over 2 is going to be 1 squared is equal to 2/5 plus 1. So can't quite do fractions in our head just yet. 1 is equal to 5 over 5. And you're going to add 2/5 to it, which becomes 7/5. Okay, we're going to take the square root of both sides. So now this becomes x plus 1 is equal to positive or negative the root of 7 over 5. Move the 1 over. So now we have x is equal to negative 1 plus or minus the root of 7 over 5. And that is our final answer. Okay, last one. We're going to use an example using a word problem. Okay, so a person stands on a cliff that is 55 meters high. He throws a stone up in the air. The stone hits the water a few seconds later. The approximate height of the stone in h meters above the water after t seconds is modeled by the formula. And so we're given the formula. H is equal to 55 plus 30t minus 5t squared. When will the stone hit the water? Give the answer to the nearest tenth of a second. Okay. So a big thing to look at here is the question itself. When will the stone hit the water? If it hits the water, how high is it? Well, it hits the water at 0 meters. That's when it hits the water. Okay, so that means that h is going to be equal to 0. If h is going to be equal to 0, we can complete the square. So that means 0 is equal to 55 plus 30t minus 5t squared. So let's complete the square. Oh, sorry. Before we do any of that, let's get rid of the negative 5t first. Okay, so let's get rid of the negative 5. So we're going to divide everything by negative 5 again. Divide by negative 5. Okay, so we have t squared minus 6t minus 11 is equal to 0. Move the 11 over. So again, we're going to add 11 to both sides. So move the 11 over. You get t squared minus 6t. So rewrite that. 6t is equal to 11. So that means that t squared minus 6t plus blank is equal to 11 plus blank. Okay, again, it's b squared, b over 2 squared. So negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Negative 3 squared is 9. So we're going to add 9 to both sides. So that means t squared minus 6t plus 9. So when we factor it, it becomes t minus 3 squared is equal to 20. Take the square root of both sides. Okay, so let's take the square root of both sides. We have t minus 3 is equal to positive or negative the root of 20. Add 3 to both sides. We get t is equal to 3 plus or minus the root of 20. What we need to do is we need to check. There are 2 possible answers. Okay, we need to make sure and we need to verify that they are both or one or none are correct. So let's check. Let's check when t is equal to 3 plus the root of 20. Okay, so remember to go back to the original equation. We have t. We have 0 is equal to 55 plus 30t minus 30 times 3 plus the root of 20. Okay, minus 5 times 3 plus the root of 20. Oh boy. Squared. I swear that's what it says. Okay, so when you solve all that, you should get the answer being, okay, you should get the answer being when it reaches the 0 height. T is equal to 7.4 seconds. Okay, don't worry, you can use a calculator for this. But when you simplify it all, you should get t is equal to 4 seconds. Okay? And if you check the second one, so if we check t is equal to 3 minus the root of 20. So again, you substitute the value in. 0 is equal to 55 plus 30, and then 3 minus the root of 20, minus 5, 3 minus the root of 20, all squared. You should get the answer, or sorry, you should get t is equal to at negative 1.5. Okay. However, when it comes to time, you can't have a negative. Okay, so t is equal to negative 1.5 does not work. Okay, so which means that this is the only answer. Well, that is it for today's lesson on solving quadratic equations with square roots. I hope you enjoyed it. And remember, when it always comes to math, keep calm and show your work.